I never thought the man I loved could be planning my ruin. Until the night it all became clear. The night began the way our nights always did, soft, intimate, wrapped in the illusion of us. Adrian stood behind me as I adjusted my earrings in the mirror, his arms sliding around my waist like they belonged there. He rested his chin on my shoulder, smiling at our reflection as if we were a painting carefully curated for the world. "You're glowing tonight," he murmured, brushing a stray strand of hair from my face. His fingers lingered, warm, familiar. I laughed, leaning back into him. "You say that every time I wear this dress." "And every time I mean it," he said, eyes locked on mine through the mirror. "Honestly, I don't know how anyone else can compete with you." It felt real. It always had. His voice, his touch. The way he said my name like it was a promise, everything about Adrian felt like home. That was the danger of loving someone for too long. You stop questioning the foundation. You assume it's unbreakable. He helped me into my heels, kissed my knuckles like some old world romantic. And for a fleeting second, I remembered why I had fallen for him in the first place. We had history. Deep, tangled, impossible to erase history. Adrian and I met when we were 16. In a classroom that smelled of chalk dust and ambition. I was the girl everyone knew, the elite family. The polished manners, the future already written in fountain pen. He was the boy no one noticed at first sharp eyes. Quiet confidence, worn shoes he pretended not to care about. He sat 2 rows behind me and borrowed a pen on the first day. He never gave it back. I figured, he'd said later with a grin, "You'd talk to me again if I owed you something." That was Adrian. Clever without trying too hard. Confident without arrogance. He didn't care that my last name opened doors or that my weekends were spent at country clubs while his were spent working part-time jobs. He spoke to me like I was just a girl, not a legacy. He won me slowly, not with grand gestures, but with presence. He stayed up late helping me study when I didn't need help. He listened when I complained about expectations that came with privilege. He challenged me, argued with me, made me feel human instead of ornamental. When my parents dismissed him as a phase, he smiled and kept showing up. By the time we graduated, we were inseparable. When I went to an elite university and he stayed back, working and studying where he could afford, I thought distance would break us. It didn't. He made sure it didn't. He took night buses just to see me for an hour. He sent handwritten letters when text felt too cheap for what he wanted to say. He loved me loudly when the world loved me politely. I knew his background is not that rich. He was suffering to make ends meet when I returned home after completing my higher education. I decided to open him a new company and made him the CEO. Years later, when we launched our startup together, my connections, his brilliant sight felt like destiny completing a circle. We were proof that love could bridge classes, that ambition didn't have to be cruel. My father advised me to keep a major share in the company, even if I give the CEO seat to him. I am glad I listened to my dad at the right time. At least, that's what I told myself. The gala was everything they promised it would be. Chandeliers dripping with light. Champagne flowing like rivers. Laughter echoing against marble walls. People whispered about us, the power couple, the perfect blend of legacy and genius. Everyone wanted a photo with Adrian. Everyone wanted a word with me. I watched him work the room, charming investors, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, playing his role flawlessly. And still, I missed the little things, the way his phone buzzed too often, the way he angled the screen away from me, the way some of his smiles looked rehearsed, like he was performing for someone else. I excused myself to the lobby, needing air. That's when I heard him. "Yeah," Adrian said quietly, his voice stripped of warmth, sharpened by confidence.
"She never see it coming. I'll handle the papers. By the time she realizes, it'll be too late."
My world tilted. Papers? too late? My heart slammed against my ribs. But years of training elite composure, polished smiles kicked in. When he turned and saw me, I laughed softly, as if I hadn't just watched my future crack open.
Are you ready for tonight?
He asked, leaning in, his breath familiar against my ear. Of course, I said sweetly, tucking terror behind charm. Let's make everyone jealous. He kissed my cheek, the same lips that once whispered forever. Later, when the city quieted and the gala lights faded behind our penthouse windows, I sat alone with my laptop. Adrian was in the shower, humming like nothing in the world could touch him. I followed instinct more than logic. Our shared startup drive, a folder hidden behind layers of innocuous names. And there it was. Contracts, emails, timelines. Adrian had been planning to sell our idea to a rival company and frame me for the leak. My signature forged. My access logs manipulated. My reputation positioned as collateral damage. Every late night. Every conversation. Every "we're in this together." A lie. My hands trembled as I scrolled, but beneath the shock, something else stirred. Not panic. Not heartbreak. Calculation. I closed the laptop just as the bathroom door opened. Adrian walked out, towel around his waist, smiling like the boy who once stole my pen.
You okay?
He asked casually. Just tired, I replied, meeting his eyes. Big night. He kissed my forehead and went to bed. I stayed awake, staring out at the city below, lights glittering like nothing could ever go wrong. I finally understood the truth. Adrian hadn't just fallen in love with me. He had studied me. And that was his mistake because he'd taught me everything he knew. Okay, I whispered to myself, voice steady despite the storm inside my chest. If this is a game, I play by my rules. He thought he could destroy me quietly. But I was already 2 steps ahead. I was the woman he underestimated. I didn't confront him. That was my first mistake. Or maybe my smartest move. The morning after the gala. Sunlight spilled through the penthouse windows like nothing had shattered the night before. Adrian moved around the kitchen in his usual effortless way. Barefoot, confident, at home in a space that had once felt like ours. He leaned down and kissed my forehead, soft and familiar.
You were incredible last night, he said, already scrolling through his phone. The investors loved you.
I smiled the way I always did, practiced, controlled. They did. Of course, he replied without looking up.
You make everything look effortless.
Effortless. The word echoed in my mind as I wrapped my hands around my coffee mug, grounding myself. Then, like it was just another item on a grocery list, he added.
We should sign the final paperwork next week.
Paperwork. There it was again. I nodded slowly, lifting the cup to my lips to hide the way my jaw tightened. Whatever you think is best. That same man, the boy who once stayed up all night with me in a cramped dorm room, sketching ideas on napkins and dreaming out loud, was now trying to erase me from the very dream we built together. So I did what any loving fiancé would do. I stayed quiet. I laughed at his jokes, even when they weren't funny. I held his hand in public, squeezed it a little tighter when cameras were near. I posted smiling photos online #PowerCouple, blessed, future, and behind the scenes. I started preparing my exit. I became invisible. I began recording everything. Every phone call he took on the balcony, thinking the glass doors muffled his voice. Every meeting he forgot to mention. Every late-night message where his guard slipped and the truth leaked out. I stopped reacting and started observing. One night, while he was in the shower, steam fogging the bathroom mirror, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. Once, twice, then again. Unknown contact. I stared at the screen longer than I should have, my heart steady this time. I picked it up. She's still clueless. Once the deal is done, I'll make sure she takes the fall. No shaking. No tears. I took screenshots. Then I backed them up cloud, drive email to myself under a different name. That was the moment something inside me shifted. The fear drained out and left space for something colder, sharper. Control. After that, Adrian started changing. Not overnight, subtly, like a crack spreading under polished marble. He grew impatient, short-tempered, controlling. He started asking questions he'd never cared about before. Where were you? Who were you meeting? Why didn't you answer your phone? One evening, he watched me from across the living room. His gaze to focused, to calculating. You've been distant lately, he said. I looked up from my laptop slowly. Have I? Yes, he replied.
You're different.
I smiled sweetly. Wedding stress. You know how it is. He didn't smile back. That's when it hit me sharp and sudden. He was afraid. Afraid I knew something. And fear made him sloppy. So I leaned into it. I started planting seeds. I casually mentioned rival companies at dinner. Oh, I ran into someone from Ardent Corp today. Interesting people. I dropped the names of lawyers I hadn't actually spoken to. Funny, you know, my old family attorney asked about the startup. I let him catch glimpses of my laptop screen before casually closing tabs. Whenever he entered the room, the man who once controlled every variable started losing sleep. He checked my phone when he thought I wasn't looking. He stayed up pacing after midnight. He flinched when notifications buzzed. The irony was almost poetic. Then came the invitation. A private investor gala. Bigger than the last. Media partners. Live coverage. Industry giants. Adrian was glowing, energized, nervous in a way that felt final. This is it, he said, adjusting his cufflinks in the mirror. After this, everything changes. I met his eyes in the reflection. You have no idea, I said softly. What he didn't know, what no one knew yet, was the real twist. The rival company he thought he was selling to. They weren't working with him anymore. They were working with me. Weeks earlier, after confirming everything, I had reached out quietly. I showed them proof emails, contracts, timelines. I didn't beg. I didn't threaten. I offered them something better. Transparency, leverage, and a story they could control. They agreed to one condition. Let it play out publicly. I stood in front of the mirror that night, dressed for the gala, studying my reflection. The woman staring back at me looked calm, powerful, untouchable. I barely recognized her. I wasn't the girl who fell in love in a high school classroom. I wasn't T the fiancé waiting to be betrayed. I was the woman about to end him. Not with screaming, not with tears, but with truth. And the world was going to watch. He thought the gala would make him untouchable. He didn't realize it was the night I took everything back. They say revenge is best served cold. I served mine under fluorescent lights. In a boardroom Adrian thought was private. The conference room was sleek, minimalist glass walls, polished oak table, chairs lined like soldiers waiting for orders. A row of investors sat across from Adrian, nodding politely, smiling the way people do when they think they understand power. He stood at the head of the table, pointer in hand. Slides projected on the screen behind him. Confidence radiated from him like heat. You ready? He whispered, leaning toward me just before the meeting started, his hand brushing mine. Always, I said, voice steady, calm. He believed he controlled the room. He believed the drama, the betrayal, would stay here between us, between contracts, between whispers in the hallways. He had no idea. Because the meeting wasn't just being recorded. It wasn't just secure. I had arranged something special. A live stream. Hidden cameras, microphones, every word, every slip. Broadcasting secretly to the press waiting outside. Adrian had no idea that the world was about to watch. The meeting began. Adrian's voice flowed smoothly. He spoke of vision, of growth, of partnerships that would define the next decade. Investors nodded. Phones were discreetly raised to take notes. Everything seemed ordinary. Until I let the first file appear on the shared screen. Contracts, emails, evidence. Every betrayal meticulously documented. Adrian glanced at me mid-slide, confused. His confident smile faltered.
What? What is this?
He asked, voice low, almost a growl. I smiled at calm, composed. Just finishing what we started, I said, and let the recordings play. His voice unmistakable.
Once the deal is done, she take the fall.
Investors froze. A few murmured. Some instinctively reached for their phones. Adrian's face paled.
Wait, this isn't what it looks like, he stammered, stepping toward me.
I raised my hand, quieting the room. It looks exactly like what it is. You tried to betray me behind my back while pretending to be the perfect partner. And now everyone here knows. Whispers spread across the boardroom. Screens showed contracts he thought were secret. Emails he thought no one had seen. Recordings he never knew existed. Adrian's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his tie. This isn't public, he said, trying to regain control. I let him stew in that illusion. Because the meeting was not private. It was streaming. Secretly, carefully, flawlessly. Lived to the press waiting right outside the building. Every moment, every incriminating word, every gasp and flinch was being broadcast. Adrian had thought the world would only see a quiet boardroom confrontation. He had no idea cameras were already rolling, media crews outside. Microphones poised to ask the question everyone wanted answered. Why would a man cheat on his high school sweetheart? The CEO of the company he supposedly loved. I walked slowly around the table, letting the cameras catch my movement, my calm, my power. I loved you, I said, voice carrying just enough for the microphones to catch if they were tuned in. I trusted you with everything, my time, my future, our company. And you tried to destroy me in secret. Adrian's face shifted from panic to disbelief. You can't, this isn't legal. I smiled sweetly. Oh, it's legal. And it's live. He froze. Something primal flickered in his eyes. The first real fear he had felt in years. I turned to the investors, who were shifting uncomfortably in their seats. The deal he promised you, I said, letting the words hang. It's already been finalized. Without him. Murmurs filled the room. Phones were lifted, quietly snapping photos. Laptops open to record. And just like that, the man who thought he controlled the boardroom realized he didn't even control the narrative. Adrian tried to speak again, to reach for me, to salvage something, anything. This is a misunderstanding, please. Just. I cut him off. No, you misunderstood me. You betrayed me. You miscalculated. Then came the final twist. I had arranged for a press team to wait as soon as the meeting ended. When Adrian finally stepped out, still dazed, blinking against the fluorescent lobby lights. Microphones were thrust forward. Cameras rolled. Phones flashed. Mr. Adrian, how could you betray your high school sweetheart, the CEO of your own company? Why would you cheat on her? Did you really think this would stay private? He froze. Every word I had exposed was now amplified. His confidence evaporated. He stammered, tried to redirect, tried to spin, but the cameras didn't blink. The world was watching. The headlines were writing themselves before anyone even left the lobby. I stood to the side, letting him crumble, letting the questions land. The media captured every micro-expression: fear, anger, disbelief, regret. I stepped closer and whispered, loud enough for him to hear. You think breaking me would make you powerful? Losing me, that's the moment you lost everything. Investors whispered to one another. Phones clicked. Recordings of every incriminating word, every betrayal, were already circulating on social media. Adrian's empire, built on charm and deception, collapsed not with violence, but with truth. His accounts frozen, partners withdrawing, reputation shredded before anyone could spin a story. The man who once commanded rooms, controlled narratives, charmed investors, and held me in his calculated grip, couldn't even control the panic in his own voice. I walked away that night clean. No shouting, no tears, no dramatic exit, just quiet satisfaction. The kind that comes from knowing power isn't about crushing others, it's about never letting someone crush you. The world saw him for who he was. I walked out, the CEO, the mastermind of my own narrative, free of betrayal, free of manipulation, free to define my own story. And when the world asked questions, one thing was clear. I didn't just survive. I won. Final closing line for the video. He thought breaking me would make him powerful. Losing me was the moment he lost everything. If you want more breakup stories, revenge stories, betrayal truths, and survival journeys, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share this story with someone who needs it tonight.